I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who'd be blindsided like this. I mean, sure, everyone gets betrayed in their own way, but this, it hit me like a freight train. It was our anniversary of all days. We'd been planning it for months, dinner reservations, a little getaway the weekend after, the whole romantic package. I remember waking up that morning feeling lighter than air, thinking about how lucky I was. I'd been working late for weeks, so I was looking forward to celebrating, reconnecting. She was already up when I stumbled out of bed, coffee in hand, hair a wild mess from sleep. She was on her phone, face lit up by the screen like she was hiding a secret. I didn't think much of it. Women, they're always glued to their phones these days, right? But as I walked past, I caught a glimpse of a message notification, something about a place I'd never heard of from someone I didn't recognize. My stomach clenched, but I brushed it off. Still, I had a weird prickling sense that something wasn't quite right. Later that evening, we got dressed up. She looked stunning, gown, heels, the whole 9 yards, and I couldn't help but feel proud. We headed out, laughing, joking, the way we do when everything's good. That's what I wanted to believe. But as the night went on, I kept feeling that nagging tug at the back of my mind. I was distracted, partly because I kept catching glimpses of her sneaking her phone out of her purse, sliding it into her pocket when she thought I wasn't looking. We sat at the restaurant and I watched her, trying to spot signs. Her eyes kept flicking to her phone even when she pretended to listen to my stories. That's when I saw her message. Another one, another secret. I felt the world slow down. My palms got sweaty and my throat went dry. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to find out something I'd regret. I told myself, no, don't jump to conclusions. But something deep down said otherwise. When we returned home, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing that little voice in my head, nagging me to check. It's stupid, I know, but I had to know. I reached for her phone, which she'd left on the coffee table. It was unlocked. I hesitated, feeling like I was crossing a line I'd never crossed before. But then I thought, this is her betrayal, her secret. I needed to see. I unlocked it and scrolled through her messages. My eyes widened as I saw some flirtatious texts, definitely more than just friendly banter. But what made my stomach turn was the photo she'd sent, an intimate picture with someone I didn't recognize. It was a shot of her lying on a bed, her face half hidden, a hand caressing her thigh. My chest constricted so tight I thought I'd suffocate. My hand clenched the phone so hard I thought I'd crack the screen. My mind spun. All the signs were there, the secretive texting, her nervous glances, the phone hidden away. And now this, it all made sense. I'd been blind, trusting her blindly until this moment. That night I stayed awake, replaying everything I'd seen. The betrayal wasn't just about the cheating, it was about the lies, the deception. I felt a cold, heavy rage settle in my chest. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't keep living in this lie, pretending everything was fine. She had crossed a line, and I was done pretending. I didn't see it. I decided then and there. I'd planned my revenge carefully, but first I had to figure out what to do next. I still remember the taste of that bitter coffee and how my hands shook as I held her phone, realizing this was just the beginning. I had no idea how far I was willing to go, but I knew I'd never look at her the same way again. The truth had shattered something inside me, and I was determined to make her pay. The questions now were, what exactly was I going to do? And how would I pull it off without losing myself? That's when I started plotting. Next part. I spent the next few days almost in a fog. Every time I saw her, I felt like I was walking on shards of glass. It was like I'd been punched in the gut, only to realize the punch was just the beginning. She kept acting normal, like nothing had changed, laughing, kissing, pretending everything was fine. Meanwhile, I was stewing in anger, trying to think clearly. I knew I couldn't just confront her without a plan. If I did, I'd lose all control and she'd spin it to make me look like the crazy one. I needed to understand her motives, her pattern. Was this a one-time thing, or was it something more? I started digging into her phone's history more carefully, even installing spyware so I could track her movements. It was sick, I know, but I needed to know how deep this went. Her messages were still there, more explicit than I'd initially seen. She'd been lying to me for weeks, maybe longer. The thought made my stomach churn, and I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. One night I found her planning to meet him again. She sent a message late at night about going somewhere private, and she'd given an address I didn't recognize. My blood boiled. That was the moment I decided I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I had to do something drastic, something calculated, something she wouldn't see coming. I started devising my revenge plan. First, I needed leverage. I wanted to expose her, not just for the affair, but for the way she'd lied and betrayed everything we'd built. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, but I couldn't just confront her outright. I had to be smarter. I needed her to think I was still clueless to keep her off guard. Only then could I make her regret it all. That's when I remembered her secret phone stash, hidden in her jewelry box, tucked behind a false panel. I found it one evening when she was out with friends. Inside, I discovered a second phone, an old device she'd kept for her secret chats, I guess. I didn't need much more proof to confirm what I already knew. She was more committed to this affair than I'd thought. My plan was simple but effective. I was going to lure her into a trap, make her confess, and then reveal everything at once. I had to be careful, though. If I rushed, I'd blow it all. I started setting the stage, leaving hints, making sure she'd slip up. I gathered enough evidence to destroy her credibility, not just in her eyes but in everyone's. I also reached out to the guy, an old friend I'd known for years, to see if he'd be willing to help. I told him I had proof and I wanted to catch her red-handed. Surprisingly, he was on board, said he'd be discreet, that he wanted to see her get what she deserved. I was surprised at how cold I sounded. I felt like I was becoming someone I didn't recognize, but I told myself it was necessary. She'd pushed me to this point. The night of the trap, I felt my heart pounding in my chest. I stayed quiet as she left for her supposed meeting, my stomach tight with anticipation. I double-checked everything: phone, location, timing. I even put a recording device in her purse. I was ready to catch her in the act, to turn her world upside down. I wanted her to know that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. When she finally left, I sat in the dark, waiting. My entire body tensed, every sense heightened. I could hear the faint hum of her car engine fade into the night. The silence was deafening. Minutes later, my phone buzzed, her message confirming she was with him. I exhaled slowly, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and dread. I knew this was just the beginning. Now, all I had to do was wait for her to slip up, for her to give herself away. When she did, I'd be ready. I'd have everything I needed to confront her once and for all. The thought of finally ending this charade made my hands tremble, but I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to let her see me sweat. I was in control, at least I tried to convince myself of that. And so I waited, knowing that soon everything would change. The next step was to make her confess, to give her just enough rope to hang herself. I could almost taste the revenge. I wasn't going to let her walk away from this without feeling the consequences. Next part. The hours dragged as I sat in the dark, listening to the faint hum of her car idling outside. My mind kept racing. How to make her squirm, how to make her really feel what she'd done. I knew I had enough evidence now, enough to tear her world apart. But I also wanted to be sure she'd slip up, that she'd reveal herself. Revenge wasn't just about exposing her. It was about making sure she paid for every lie, every betrayal. I kept my phone close, the recording device in her purse, quietly capturing every breath, every whispered word. I thought about how she'd look when she found out I'd been collecting all this. Would she beg, deny everything? Or would she go cold, trying to pretend she was innocent? I had no idea. All I knew was that I was ready. Finally, I saw her figure through the window, silhouette against the porch light. She looked tense, guilty almost. She slipped out of the car, her heels clicking on the walkway as she approached the door. My stomach clenched. I waited for her to come in, knowing this was the moment. When she finally entered, I was already on my feet. I kept my face blank, but my insides were burning with 1,000 different emotions: anger, betrayal, a sick sense of victory waiting in the wings. She froze in the doorway when she saw me. Her eyes darted around, and then she tried to speak, but I cut her off. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" I asked, my voice cold. "Did you think I wouldn't see the messages, the pictures?" She blinked rapidly, then swallowed hard. I didn't mean for you to find out like this." Her voice was shaky, trembling with guilt. "Oh, you didn't, huh? You just decided to cheat on me with my best friend at our anniversary party." I let that hang in the air for a moment. I hope you're proud of yourself." Her face crumpled. "It was a mistake. I didn't want it to happen." "Save it," I snapped. "You think I'm stupid. You think I didn't see the way you looked at him that night, or how you kept sneaking your phone all evening. You lied to my face for weeks, acting like everything was perfect. Well, guess what? I know the truth now. She looked like she wanted to run, but I stepped closer. I've got everything, the messages, the pictures, the recordings, and I'm done pretending this is okay." Her shoulders shook as she tried to hold back tears. "Please, I'm sorry. I never wanted you to find out like this. It just happened. I was stupid." I shook my head. "You're damn right you were stupid. You betrayed me in the worst way. And now I'm going to make sure you regret it for the rest of your life." She looked at me, eyes pleading. "What are you going to do?" I took a deep breath, feeling the surge of adrenaline. "You're not going to be able to lie your way out of this one. I've made my decision. You're going to regret everything you've done, and I'm going to make sure you never forget it." Without warning, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the flash drive I'd hidden. "Here's the evidence," I said, holding it out. "All the recordings, all the messages. It's going to ruin you just like you ruined us." Her face went pale. "You're blackmailing me." "No, I'm exposing you. I want everyone to know what kind of person you really are," I said. "And I'm done. This is the end of us." I handed her the flash drive. She looked at it, trembling, knowing her secrets were about to be made public. My heart pounding, I watched her, her face a mask of guilt, regret, and maybe even a little fear. I had finally taken control of this mess, and I was never going to look back. The fallout was going to be massive, but I wasn't going to be the one left broken. I was done being the fool, done being betrayed. I'd made my move, and now it was her turn. Next part. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking on a tightrope. The adrenaline from the confrontation hadn't worn off, but I knew I had to stay composed. I handed over the flash drive to a friend who worked in digital security, trusted him to handle everything discreetly. I told him to release everything on social media, but to do it in a way that would maximize the fallout. No holding back. I wanted her to understand exactly what she'd lost, and I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal crushing her. Meanwhile, I kept my composure around her, though inside I was boiling. Every time she looked at me, there was that flicker of remorse, but I didn't buy it. I saw her eyes dart away when I mentioned the evidence, like she knew her fate was sealed. I knew she was trying to patch things up, to act like everything was normal, but I wasn't buying it. One evening, she finally broke down. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice trembling. "I never meant for everything to come out this way. I love you, love." I cut her off sharply. "You lied to my face for months. You cheated on me with my best friend. Love doesn't do that. Love doesn't stab someone in the back and then try to pretend it's all okay." She looked at the floor, tears streaming down her face. "I was stupid. I lost my head. I never wanted to hurt you, I swear." I felt my stomach turn, but I kept my tone steady. "You can't just say sorry and expect everything to be fine. You think I'm just going to forget all of this. You think I'm going to forgive you." She reached out, desperate. "Please, just give me another chance. I'll do anything." I stepped back, feeling my jaw tight. "No, I'm done. You lost me the moment you decided to cheat. I don't want to see your face again. Just get your stuff and leave." That night she packed her bags, her hands trembling as she threw clothes into a suitcase. I watched her silently, feeling the cold satisfaction that finally I was taking control. She kept begging, crying, pleading, but I didn't say a word. I just watched her go, feeling the weight of everything I'd uncovered. When she finally shut the door behind her, I exhaled slowly, leaning against the wall. It was over. I'd cut the cord. The house suddenly felt emptier, colder. But somehow I felt lighter, like I'd finally gotten rid of the poison that had been poisoning my life for so long. The next morning, I changed the locks. I made sure she couldn't come back, couldn't try to worm her way into my life again. I handed the keys to a friend who'd helped me with the evidence, telling him to keep them safe. I wanted no chances, no second guessing. Looking around my place, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The betrayal had shattered my trust, but I'd taken back control. I knew this wasn't the end. I'd be healing, slowly, painfully. But I also knew I'd never let someone do this to me again. That night I sat in my empty apartment, staring at the door. The silence was deafening, but I had clarity now. I understood that sometimes Betrayal forces you to rebuild from the ground up. And while it hurt like hell, I'd come out stronger. The future was uncertain, but I was finally free. Next part. The days after I cut her loose felt like a strange blur. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I was more relieved or just numb. The house was too quiet without her footsteps, and I kept catching myself expecting to see her come through the door with that guilty smile of hers. But she never did. Instead, I spent my time cleaning out the remnants of our life together, throwing away her clothes, deleting her number, and uninstalling all the apps I had used to track her. Every little thing that reminded me of her felt like a wound I was trying to close. I'll admit, I felt a surge of satisfaction each time I saw her face plastered all over social media, exposed for what she really was. The videos, the pictures, the messages, everything went viral within hours. Her friends called, some apologizing, others just silent. It was like I'd finally taken the mask off her and everyone saw her for what she was. But there was a strain, emptiness underneath all that. I kept thinking about the good times, the plans we made, the future I'd envisioned. All gone. I was angry at her, yes, but I also felt betrayed by the years we'd shared. How could someone I loved so much turn out to be this person? It was like my entire perception of everything had been a lie. One night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the ceiling. My stomach was knotted, and the silence was gnarly. I realized I had to talk about this, had to process it somehow. So I reached out to a close friend, someone I trusted, to tell him what happened. I told him about the betrayal, the plan, the aftermath. His response was simple but pointed. "You did the right thing. You don't deserve to be treated like that." His words hit me harder than I expected. I'd always thought I was strong, but hearing that made me realize how much I'd been holding in. I'd carried this weight for too long. My chest felt tight, but I also felt a flicker of hope. Hope that I could move past this, that I could rebuild my life. The next few weeks were a mix of healing and reflection. I started going out more, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected. I took long walks, listened to music that made me feel alive again. I didn't want to dwell on what she did anymore. I wanted to focus on myself. Every day I felt a little stronger, a little more in control. One afternoon, I found myself in a coffee shop, chatting with a new friend, someone I met through a mutual friend I'd told my story to. We talked about betrayal, trust, and moving on. She looked at me and said, "You know, sometimes it takes losing everything to find out who you really are." That stuck with me. I realized I'd been living in her shadow for too long. Now I had a chance to carve out my own path, separate from the pain she caused. I was going to rebuild my life, one step at a time. And then I started to think about what I really wanted. Not just getting over her, but genuinely healing. I started going to therapy, talking through all the anger, the hurt, the betrayal. It was hard, like ripping off a bandage that's been stuck for years, but each session helped me see that I deserved better, that I was worth more than someone who would betray me the way she did. One day, I made a decision. I would never let someone control my happiness again. I'd learned that trust is sacred, and when it's broken, you have to be the one to rebuild yourself. I realized I'd been giving her too much power for too long. Now I was taking it back. So I started setting boundaries, learning to say no, prioritizing my needs. I even started dating again, cautiously but with more confidence. I knew I'd eventually find someone who deserved my trust, someone who wouldn't betray me like she did. Looking back, I see that her betrayal was a wake-up call. It forced me to confront the things I'd buried, my self-worth, my boundaries, my happiness. And I know that even though it hurt like hell, I'm stronger now because of it. I've learned that sometimes losing everything is what it takes to truly find yourself. Next part. The months have passed since I finally cut her out of my life. And honestly, I feel like I've been slowly rebuilding the pieces of myself I didn't realize were shattered. It's been a brutal, painful journey, full of anger, regret, and finally clarity. I won't pretend it was easy. There were nights when the loneliness crept in so deep I thought I'd drown. But I kept going, kept pushing forward, knowing that I deserved better than someone who would betray me so completely. Now, I see things differently. I've learned that trust is fragile and that betrayal cuts deep. But I've also learned that healing is possible if you're willing to face the pain and do the work. I've come to accept that what happened isn't my fault. Her choices, her betrayal, that's all on her. I don't carry that burden anymore. One day, I packed up the last of her things, clothes, jewelry, the little mementos she left behind, and handed the keys over to a friend I trust. I looked at everything I was getting rid of and felt a strange sense of liberation. It's like I finally closed a chapter I'd been stuck in for too long. I remember the moment I handed over the keys and said, "It's time I moved on for real." The look on her face, I won't lie, felt satisfying. Not because I wanted her to hurt, but because I wanted to finally say, I am done. I am reclaiming my life. Now I spend my days focusing on myself. I go to therapy, work out, reconnect with old friends, and even pick up hobbies I'd set aside. I've started dating again, cautiously but with hope. I've realized that not all people are the same. Not everyone will betray like she did. And that's a comfort I never thought I'd find after such a deep wound. Looking back, I see that her betrayal was a brutal lesson in boundaries and self-respect. I learned that I should never settle for less than honesty, loyalty, and kindness. Because once those are gone, everything else crumbles. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I survived her lies, her betrayal, and her attempt to destroy what we had. And I came out on the other side better for it. The truth is, I don't hate her anymore. I'm angry still, sure. But mostly I feel relieved. Because I finally understand that I am worth loving truly and honestly. No more pretending, no more hiding. I'm starting fresh with a clearer sense of who I am and what I want from life and love. So to anyone out there going through something similar, here's my best advice. Asterisk, don't let their betrayal define you. Rebuild, reframe, and reclaim what's yours. Because even after the deepest wounds, you can find a way to heal, and sometimes that's when you find your true strength. And that's exactly what I've done.